Hello everyone! Today we are in the final month of the second year of the clown decade, and things couldn't be more juicy for me to go through, because as time goes on, the barriers between the definitions of men and women, and sex and gender and all that, need to all be torn down. Because at the end of the day, all men are created equal obviously means that every single individual within the human race is exactly the same. And that would be true if only you ignored all the vast differences between men and women alone, but also even between individuals of the same sex. But, well, don't let that stop the institutions from going completely nutty. So, first things first, police switched to gender-neutral warrant cards. Critics said the original cards were needed for gender-specific tasks, such as searching a female prisoner. Well, that makes sense. Sussex Police is to switch to gender-neutral warrant cards after complaints from the force's LGBT network. Right, so just a thing for all institutions: get these networks out of your institutions. They're no more. There's no more use for them. There's absolutely no more use for them. What are they doing these days? Nothing but this ridiculous stuff. The network said that having male and female warrant cards was outdated. Male officers in Sussex were previously known by either A or C at the start of their IDs, while women were known as B or D. Seems like a sensible system. Now the warrant numbers of all new recruits will begin with EA, as not to distinguish between the genders. The warrant cards of the next tranche of officers will begin with EB. So because one of your networks says, oh, this is a bit outdated, because we've clearly outdated the need to differentiate men and women. Utterly insane take. But because this one network said so, forget all previous needs to differentiate between male and female officers. Doesn't matter anymore, doesn't matter at all. Well, I think it will matter when you, as they said in the caption, the need to search female prisoners. Having a man do that is obviously inappropriate, and if you don't think it is, you are probably a sex pest. Luckily, the Times has some comments from some sensible people, so Kevin Moore, a retired Sussex Police Detective Chief Superintendent, called the change a nonsense. Speaking to The Sun, he added, one reason to differentiate was because of gender-specific policing tasks. If a female prisoner needs searching, you would need a female officer to do that. A fair point. It's a very good reason to have it. Adrian Rutherford, director of the Force's People's Service, said, apart from searching duties, there is no requirement to know an officer's gender. Some fear the move could lead to delays during searches when warrant cards are being checked. I mean, for a start, they're saying gender, and the problem with gender is that, according to, let's just admit it, the type of people that are pushing for this sort of thing from the LGBT network, they are going to have the trans radical activists in, and they are going to say that the definition of a woman is anyone who says they're a woman. So even if you did have the old system of men and women having different letters at the start of their warrant card, there's probably already an issue there, because you can get someone who defines himself as a woman, even if they have a beard and clearly aren't passing and all that, still doing a female police officer's duties. So I'm quite worried he's saying gender rather than sex of the officer. But if you put the original sex of an officer who's trans, then they'll probably be offended, and, you get into this big mess. But my answer would be just to forget him. Like, who cares? Nobody will know this unless they're already in the force. And if that alone puts you off being a police officer, you absolutely should not be a police officer. You would not be able to handle the stress of the job. And if you thought getting rid of this most basic and fairly sensible policy wasn't bad enough, it gets worse. In August, it was revealed that the gender-neutral uniforms could be introduced across the UK's biggest police force. The Metropolitan Police is consulting 30,000 officers on the matter, a new report claims. The review was launched amid suggestions that the force could be in breach of the 2010 Equality Act by not having separate uniforms for non-binary and gender-fluid officers. Complete and utter clown world. Get rid of the Equality Act. Just get rid of it. It's not good for anything. All it does is cause more problems, cost more money, for crap like this, for crap like needing gender-neutral bathrooms everywhere soon, probably, because if you differentiate between men and women and don't have a gender-neutral option, apparently you're in breach of the equality law. Just get rid of it. It's not helpful. And also, what the hell is a gender-fluid uniform? What does that even mean? I'd love to see what the Met come up with. I can't wait to see it in about 2 years' time, because a statement from the Met said the Met's contract with its current uniform provider is due to expire in 2023, so expect a video from me doing a little review of the Met Police uniform catwalk. Before agreeing to a new contract with a supplier, the Met is considering what it requires of its uniform in the future to ensure officers are best able to carry out their job while continuing to adhere to the equality law. Just that whole post, that comma, that whole section of the sentence needs to go. It's crazy. We need to make sure we're adhering to a mental law that doesn't, well, it does let you differentiate between men and women, but also needs it for people who are non-binary, which is barely anyone in the population, who apparently can't handle wearing trousers and a shirt for men. Anyway, I'd love to see how that goes. So if that wasn't bad enough, on the same day we got to this article. RAF goes gender neutral as aviators replace airmen and women. All RAF personnel will now be referred to as aviators. Incredible. And the thing is, aviators sounds like a really cool name, but the reason they're doing this is just incredibly cringe. So, the RAF has ditched the terms airmen and airwomen in favour of the gender-neutral term aviator. The decision was quietly announced in the November issue of Air Clues, an official RAF magazine, in a section about safety objectives. How is changing the name of airmen and women to aviators part of the safety objectives? It reads, by the way, if that's the first time you've heard of the term aviator, then get on board. No longer does it just mean aircrew, but the term aviator has now replaced the generic term of airmen to bring right up to date the way we should describe all of our personnel in a modern and appropriate manner. Literally just the 2021 argument. Oh, it's the clown decade, everything needs to be gender neutral. Still doesn't explain what it's got to do with safety objectives, but whatever. So, it's no longer soldiers, sailors and airmen, but soldiers, sailors and aviators. Watch out for the TV commentators getting used to that. Yeah, you've just changed it for absolutely no reason. What safety hazard was there calling airmen and airwomen airmen and airwomen? They've probably just been pressurised again by an LGBT community. Because you can't feel good about yourself unless you help change things for absolutely no reason. The move drew a furious reaction from Patrick Mercer, the former Tory MP and retired Army Colonel. Mercer, 65, whose 25 years of Army officers included posting to Northern Ireland and Bosnia, said, for years I had airmen and airwomen under my command. You have two perfectly good, historic, tried and tested terms, which have never caused any difficulties or problems. It's needless wokery. He told the Mail on Sunday, if you're going to do this sort of thing, presumably the idea of women service people wearing skirts and doing up their tunics differently to men needs to stop too. Where do you draw the line? There's also a cost implication due to the sheer bureaucracy of scrapping signs and letters saying airmen and airwomen. It's nonsense. I mean, that argument alone should be enough, not the bureaucracy bit. I mean, obviously that's a good argument, but just the argument should be enough to say, no, this is what we've done for ages, we don't care what you think. You know, if you want to call them aviators, but no one's going to know what you're talking about. But this was a reply from an Air Marshal. So Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wigson confirmed the policy. He said, with more than 1 in 5 of our recruits now women, the title Airmen does not reflect a modern, diverse Royal Air Force. Oh my god, it's the current year argument again. Yes, Airmen still does. It still makes up 4/5 of your force. At least when it comes to recruits. I mean, we're just talking about recruits there. How many of those women stay on for 25 years? The answer, probably not that many. Our business is aviation. The Army has soldiers, the Navy has sailors, and the Air Force has aviators. No, it doesn't. It still has airmen and women to me. Because I refuse to go along with this modern bollocks. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I mean, there's only one reason these moves are coming in at the same time here, and I think that's because people are pressurising them and using the Equality Act as the reason for this. Because both these announcements were made on the same day. So something's going on in the institutions of, you know, the Met Police Force and the Air Force, and there's probably going to be one pushed on the Army and the Navy and all that as well. Gotta make some content before Christmas, I suppose. But if you think it's bad for institutions in the UK, just wait till you see what the European Commission has got up to when it comes to Newspeak. So according to the Telegraph, European Commission U-turns on ban of gendered words and Christmas in woke communication guide. European Commission has published an inclusive guidebook banning terms like man-made and ladies and gentlemen in official publications. So apparently this has been U-turned by the European Commission, so it appears that the Europeans are pretty good at pushing back on this nonsense. The Brits need to do some work, but we'll go through this article anyway. The European Commission has been forced to row back on an attempt to put an end to gendered words such as man-made and ladies and gentlemen, and replace them with neutral phrases like human-induced and dear colleague. The guidelines for inclusive communication were designed to force EU officials to update their language and avoid expressions considered stigmatising according to gender, sexual identities, ethnic backgrounds and culture. Helena Dalli, the European Commissioner responsible for the equality, said the guidebook, which was issued about 4 weeks ago, clearly needed more work after the 32-page document was scrapped. It is not a mature document and does not meet all the Commission quality standards, she said. I therefore withdraw the guidelines and will work further on this document. Concern was raised with regards to some examples provided, the EU's equality chief added. So the Commission tried to control language because of equality and inclusion. And obviously people in the Commission are just saying, why the hell can't we say ladies and gentlemen? Among with other ridiculous things which the article goes through. Brussels sources said that the guidebook, which Mrs Dalli proudly posed with for pictures last month, was rejected by Ursula von der Leyen, the Commission's president, before it was withdrawn. Under the scrap guidance, officials were ordered to avoid gender-specific language and told to use phrases like chair, colleagues and human-induced instead of chairman, ladies and gentlemen, or man-made. Human-induced instead of man-made, that sounds so wrong. In a further push for gender-neutral language, it was suggested that expressions such as fire is man's greatest invention should be replaced with fire is mankind's greatest invention. Man means mankind. Commission staff were also told to scrap the pronouns Mr, Mrs and Ms unless they were specifically requested. In the absence of such information, MX should be used as the default, the guidebook said. This is just ridiculous. Thank God it was pushed back on. I just hate it. You're not allowed to make any assumptions anymore. If someone's called James, you can't assume they're a man. If someone's called Mary, can't assume they're a woman. No, it's all got to be gender neutral from this point on. Well, it is ridiculous. There's enough to differentiate between men and women just by looking at them. You should be able to differentiate them with the way you refer to them and things like that. Not according to this guidebook, though. The guidebook noted that officials should never presume a person's gender or sexual orientation. Do not ask what pronouns a person prefers. This assumes that gender identity is a personal preference. It is not, according to the guidelines. Oh, no. I'm sorry. We were all told about 5 years ago when this pronoun nonsense came out that, oh, just ask. People won't have a go. Now official guidebooks, although they've been rejected, but I mean, it's rejected now. It's probably going to be back in a year. They say, oh, no, don't ask that because it assumes that all this stuff is personal preference. It's not. It's called on officials to never use gendered nouns such as workman, policeman, or masculine pronouns he, his as a default. Ms. Dalli recommended banning references to Christmas in Christian names because they could be deemed as an intolerance or judgment, fuel stereotypes, or single out religious groups. Not everyone celebrates the Christmas holidays. We need to be sensitive to the fact that people have different religious traditions. Her guidance reads, urging officials to use holiday season instead. Oh, go do one. Europe is a generally Christian nation. If people come over, they should be trying to integrate into the culture. That includes referring to the 25th of December as Christmas Day. And generally we have a lot of Christian names around Europe. Because again, we were a Christian nation, and we like to name people after people from the Bible, especially in the New Testament. So I'm sorry reality is so offensive to you and you think we need to care about what some other religious sects think. I'm sorry we don't. We're in Europe. We have a strong history and tradition of Christian names and Christmas. I refuse to call it anything different. Amazingly, this gets worse though. They have such an issue with Christian names that names such as Mary and John would have been banned in the Commission publications. Malika and Julius were proposed as alternative examples. Why? They're just people's names. Why do they have to change? In a separate section of the manual, the issue of colonialism was tackled. Great. The expression colonisation of Mars is considered negative and inappropriate under this heading. Instead, the sending of humans to Mars should be used. Send them to do what? That's the thing with colonisation. It implies also that we plan to live there in a colony against the bad weather of Mars, putting it lightly. Just sending them to Mars, what, to die? Come on. Colonisation has a definite meaning, and we use it for good reason. The withdrawn publication was widely mocked by right-wing politicians across the EU. Marine Le Pen, a far-right presidential candidate in France, said, "These technocrats show their real face." That of an enemy to our identities, our roots, our traditions. Well, is she wrong? Marco Zanni and Marco Campomenesi, who represent Italian right-wing party Lega in the European Parliament, added, "We can hope that Brussels invests better their time and, above all, the money of European citizens, working on the most urgent issues and on real emergencies." Amazing. I completely agree. And it's probably the easiest thing to push back in the world for them, because I can't see anyone on the left wing, no matter where you are, whether you're far left or centre left, whatever, I can't see any of them trying to defend changing people's names because they're Christian names. That is just another level of ridiculous. But really, I think absolutely everything in this guidebook will be legislated in the European Commission, in about 3-4 years. Because the issue here that the European Commission had with this guidebook is that they tried to do too much at once. You can't say Christmas anymore. You can't use Christian names and need to, instead of saying John, say Julius. Oh, and at the same time, don't ask people for pronouns. You don't make changes like this, especially when it's so easy to push back against. No, you do what the army and the Met the Air Force and the Met were doing in this video. They change one thing at a time. It's slow creep. You ask for an inch, and slowly you'll get a mile. And when you get to the point of the mile, people will try and stop you, saying, "No, you're going too far now." And then they bitch and scream and shout, "Well, you should have given us 2 miles." And that's how the power creep keeps going. This is why a lot of, especially neo-reactionaries, say Cthulhu swims left, though they don't just mean it on this issue. But I'm completely with that as well. This is the issue Labour have had in this country probably since they were first elected in. They try and change too much at once. With, say, Clement Attlee, just absolutely everything was nationalised. Yet a few years down the line, they nationalise too much and the unions have too much power. You end up with Margaret Thatcher, who does her best to fix it all. But we've still got things such as the NHS, which completely, I don't want to say completely destroyed British society, but we had solutions to the healthcare problem, which were friendly societies, which were essentially very localised insurance systems for communities, for local communities and things like that. And it tightly knitted the community together when it came to important, the need for money in emergencies, such as short-term benefits and, well, healthcare. But obviously now that's all just been completely replaced by the state, and one of the main reasons for that is basically Attlee. But as I say, he put too much in and a lot of it was pushed back on, although it took a bit longer. Same thing's going to happen here. Some of the stuff in this guidebook is going to be kept. And that's probably the less ridiculous stuff that hasn't been reported on. This was 32 pages after all. So we'll wait and see for future news articles and see what they say. But be wary of things like this. Just reject them. Just reject everything in it outright if you have that power. Because if not, you'll just see it being brought in by progressives driving the speed limit, aka centrists and less based right-wingers. So there you go, that's my solution. And that's everything I had for you today. Thought I'd keep this one relatively short for one of my videos, but short and sweet, we'll say. So, as usual, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.